Lisa Parigi from thinkautism.co.uk and welcome back to this week's e-zine. This week is a follow-on from last week's video where we talked about resistance and what it might look like, why it might be happening and what you can do about it. And I'd like to follow on from that really and just give you a few pointers to help you with that. So I hope you've had a good week observing the kind of resistance that you might be facing and working out the patterns of behaviour and the triggers as to why you might be getting that resistance. So thank you to everybody who's actually emailed me and shared their thoughts on that. It's really helpful, so I can help you further. So there are some things that I want to share with you today which can be applied to all of those types of resistance that we talked about, whether it's withdrawal, aggression, or not understanding the communication, or communicating in any other way really that they don't want to participate. So one of the first things I think that's really important is to think about what it is that you're inviting your child to do with you. Once you've thought about what it is that you're doing, you can pick and choose the battles. So you don't want to be dealing with resistance all day long. It's just completely draining and exhausting, and that's not going to be good use of your time. But it is important to pick and choose which battles you are actually going to work through, because you know as your child's guide why it's important for them to be interacting in any given interaction that you're asking them to partake in. And if it's really important, and many interactions are really important because they help to develop your child's abilities and deficits, so it really helps them have those experiences and interactions. And if it's important, what you need to do is you need to remember why you're doing that interaction, because many times I work with families and they kind of forget the reason why they're doing it, and so as the resistance kicks in, they then think all sorts of things really. Their mind starts going wild and thinking, oh, maybe they're resisting because they're tired, or maybe they're resisting because they're hungry, or they don't like this activity, or they're not feeling very well, and all sorts of things kick in. And as a parent, what happens is you start kind of making excuses for them. And yes, it is hard for them, and you want to make them happy, you want to see them happy, and you want to make sure they're feeling okay. But you also know that sometimes you've got to learn through experiences. And so you're actually doing them a pretty big favour by inviting them in this interaction with you, and they need to work through that. They don't know you're doing them a favour, so they're going to kick off, but you have to remind yourself so that you stay strong throughout that interaction if and when you do face resistance. So that's one of the first things I think is really important to think about. The next thing is, well, obviously safety. Safety is really important too. I mean, if you've got a child whose resistance shows up in aggressive forms, then obviously you need to look after yourself. You need to make sure you're safe. You need to make sure your child isn't going to hurt or harm themselves or other people, whether it be siblings or other children around, or even other adults. Make sure that you can look after everybody that's there in that environment, so that you can actually work through this. So that might mean getting rid of things that they might throw, or learning how to defend yourself, or making sure that you put in precautions so that there's not going to be any harm going on there. The next thing really is to not give up. So now you've thought about why you're doing it, you've chosen your battle, you've made it all safe, and then really try really hard not to give up, because you have to remind yourself that you're doing this for a good reason. You're not being a mean mum or a mean dad, you're not being too hard on them, you're doing this for a good reason. So you will need to wait it out and try and block out all those thoughts that you have in your mind that's telling you to stop and give up, and let them have their own way. So wait it out as much as possible. Now, following from that, make sure that your communication is really inviting. You're not demanding something from them that they can't do. You're not, asking the world of them. And that, when you're actually being inviting to them, that will help you as well to know that you're not asking too much from them, and that's okay. You can stick it out. And also from the child's perspective, if you're being invited to do something instead of demanded to do something, there's quite a different energy level going on there, and many children much prefer being invited and having the option to choose to partake in something, rather than being told to do something. It's quite a different thing. You also, if you start to get a bit of resistance kicking in, you want to keep the activity or the interaction relatively short. So you don't want it to go on for too long, because that's a lot of resistance you're going to have to put up with. But also, we need to make sure that they're learning that, oh, okay, I've done what it is that I needed to do, and it wasn't that bad. Yeah, so once they learn that, okay, this isn't too bad, and you can develop that over time, and expand the length of activities and interactions, because they'll have a more positive memory of what's going on there. So also be really clear in your communication. Make sure you're being understood by them. You're not using too much language to confuse them, and they really understand what's required. So whether it's you might need some visual support to help them with that, or you might need to physically show them how to do things. And on top of all of those things, really make sure that you're providing the appropriate support and guidance that they need to be able to succeed in the interaction or the activity or whatever it is that's going on that they're resisting. Because if you remember what we talked about in the first video last week, lots of children resist things because they don't feel competent. So if they're not feeling competent, and that's one of the reasons that you've noticed why they're resisting, then you need to make sure that you're increasing what we call scaffolding or support, increasing that level of support so that they can feel guided and successful in what they're doing. So all of those things together are really useful tips that when you implement them, when you think about them, they will actually help you get through any sorts of resistance that you're facing. So put last week's video together with this week's video, and you've got quite a nice little toolkit there as to what's going on and why it's happening and what you need to do to deal with it. And then over time, what we'd expect to see is that the resistance goes down, because children actually learn that there's no real point in resisting the interaction, because they've got to do it anyway, in the nicest possible way that you teach that, and the interaction is actually fun, it's safe, and they can learn to trust you. And overall, what happens is they tend to develop memories of, yeah, I can do it, yeah, and feelings of competence. So if they're feeling competent, then they're going to want to do more of it, and you'll get a lot less resistance going on there, and more willingness to interact and participate. And that is pretty much the crux of how it happens, how you deal with that resistance. Yes, as you've cracked it, you'll still get some sorts of resistance for different things later on, but now you'll know how to deal with it. So putting the analysing together and the theory and the strategies, and you may come up with your own strategies as well that work for your child, and that's brilliant. So put those together and you've got a nice little toolkit there. So yeah, share your discoveries and what's working for you and what's not working for you, either on the Facebook page, or you can email me directly. And if you're not already receiving these e-zines and weekly video tips and articles, then please sign up at www.thinkautism.co.uk. Okay, I hope you all have a great week and I will see you next week.